Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome to another TV Central One-on-One podcast. I'm Aron Ryan. This is episode 29, 2024. Shaun Micallef has been on our screens since before there was a screen. He is a comedian, actor, writer, and television presenter. He's also very funny. He is perhaps least known for hosting Mad as Hell and talking about your generation. He's been part of Frontal, the Micallef Program, Newstopia, and Mr. and Mrs. Murder. If you're a fan of the stage, you might not have seen The Odd Couple. He's the author of a number of books writing about all things he knows, like Mad as Hell and Back, and things he doesn't know about, notably his memoir, Tripping Over Himself. With a string of television projects like Sea Change, Thank God You're Here, Stairway to Heaven, The XPM, he's most famous for two significant roles, Channel 10's Brain Eisteddfod and appearing on this TV Central One-on-One podcast. That's about as far as my humour stretches. Not even ChatGPT could do anything about that. But Shaun Micallef is back at the ABC with a brand new 8-part talk show, Shaun Micallef's Eve of Destruction, premiering Wednesday, the 14th of August at 8 p.m. on ABC TV and ABC iView. Shaun probes celebrity guests on the two possessions that they would save in the event of a hypothetical disaster. We find out why can't Steve Curry live. What can't he live without? What will Mary Coustas rescue? And what possession does Rebecca Gibney covet the most? Shaun delves deep into the whys and wherefores to find out what is truly important. But a twist in the finale may bring everything into doubt that has come before. Shaun has stopped by for a chat to discuss all things about the new show. Shaun Micallef from Eve of Destruction. Thank you for joining me at TV Central, and I apologise about that opening monologue.
Oh, Aaron, that was a great introduction. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. What's the twist at the end of the series? Is it we don't get renewed? I don't know. I don't know. What's you seem to know more about this than me.
I'm just reading the the media stuff that comes through, but I'm maybe all of the things don't get distracted. I mean I see them. Maybe it's all I don't know. You tell me.
Well, we don't want to. Well, we it's a conceit that the items are going to be destroyed, or is it? So
Mm.
that's a bit of surprise. I want to leave some surprise for the show, and you can't explain everything. Like, for example, I can tell you who the two guests are for the first show. You probably don't know that. You know, it's Steve Curry. You mentioned Stephen
Yes, I've
Curry.
I've watched the episode and Felix
Oh, you
Cameron.
have. Oh, you know how it ends. You know how it ends then.
Yes.
Yeah, we do destroy one item of the four offered at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have unique and interesting ways of doing that. So the only production value of the show is in the last 4 seconds. Everything else is sitting. It's two guys, or two girls, or whatever, sitting on a chair each, having a conversation. That's it for most of the show, and then we really pull out all the stops and blow a lot of money on helicopters and the tanks and explosions and that sort of thing.
Well, so yeah, in essence, it's an interview style with that added layer of destroying celebrities' favorite pieces of property. So I guess the question is, why?
Oh, well, I don't know. That's a very good question, Aaron. This is the first interview I've done about the show, and no one's thought to tell me to expect the question why. Do you mean why am I doing it, or why are we interested in what people would say from their homes?
Well, I mean, it's generally a chat show, an interview style show. And then it just has this not so much random, but this part at the end where you just destroy someone's property. And like you said, it's like 4 seconds. I'm just wondering, it could have just been a chat show.
It could have been, but I look, I watched a lot of chat shows in my many years in television and off television, and I've always thought that it was about the what the interviewer wanted to ask. It's a kind of impertinent assumption that the guest will come on and just be subject to a bunch of interrogative questions from an interviewer. So I thought, well, why, they can come in and talk about what they want to. They can set the agenda, so they can bring two items in that they feel very strongly about, and they're connected to in a real way, and I will just listen to them. So I basically made the job very easy for myself. They come in, they talk about something they're passionate about, and then we surprise them at the end by destroying one of them. They get to go home with one of their items they bought in, and the other one maybe not.
Yeah, just gone. All right. I have to say though, that first episode, how great is Felix Cameron from Boy Swallows Universe? He's a little firecracker, isn't he?
He's very talented. Yeah, look, I mean, he's a great actor. We've seen, if you've watched the show, you can see just how good he is. What was great and pleasant and surprising, I suppose, was how at ease he was in front of an audience, because he's not done stage work, so he's not at all au fait with what it is to sit in front of an audience and ad lib, which is basically what he was doing, and he took to that very easily. He's a nice kid, you know. He's like 14 years old, so he's only young. As it turns out, I think he goes to school with one of Stephen's children. So Stephen
Oh,
stays on for the second half of the interview, and the dynamic changes slightly. I, in fact, have to do less, even less than I was doing originally, because Stephen's basically asking him questions. So yeah, it's a nice first episode. I think it gives the audience a good taste of what the series is, and yeah, and I think yeah, we'll see people we know like Stephen, and see people perhaps we haven't seen that often like Felix. Although I suspect that under the Logies is coming up on the weekend. I think he's nominated for a couple. He may well be a little more famous after this weekend than he is at the moment.
mm,
But yeah, I look forward to seeing what he does with his career, because he's going to do interesting things, I think.
absolutely. If I was to create a brand new show, never thought of series called Aron Ryan's Eve of Destruction, and you were my guest, what two items might you bring?
Uh, yeah, I really should have thought this through. It's likely that I'll be asked that question. I must say that, I mean, I'm sitting talking to you now in my office, and you probably can see behind me over my shoulder a whole bunch of books. Uh, and I would find that I would be paralyzed with indecision about which two books I would rescue, for example. I would probably just let them all burn as a result of not being able to decide which two I should rescue. And I think that's true of all of the things that I have. I just would find it very hard to pick only two of them. Um, so yeah, I've got a few books that are autographed by people that I, really admire, but who do you leave behind? So I think I just make it easier for myself. I just get out of the house, and I just watch the fire, let it
Mm.
all go. Everything can go. It doesn't matter. What's important is the other stuff.
Maybe you can start by getting rid of some of the Roald Dahl stuff you might have there.
No, no, you got to keep those, because they're redoing those books and taking out all the good stuff.
Absolutely. What are some of the guests that we can expect over the 8 episodes? Is that too much of a spoiler?
No, no, I think I think I should tell you something about the show. We've got a few sports people. Usman Khawaja's coming on, and he plays cricket. Aaron, I don't know if you know that he plays cricket. He's a test Australian Test cricketer, which I'm looking forward to, because I've never watched a game of cricket in my life. So I'm very eager to talk to him and see what cricket's all about. Um, a lot of old friends. Obviously, it's the first season, so I called in some favors, I guess, and a whole bunch of people I haven't worked with as well. Uh, yeah, I can't remember which order the shows are in. We're recording them at the moment, so I've only got about three in the bag. The rest of them are to come, and you know, things can change, Aaron. I don't want to promise that we'll have Russell Crowe on and then suddenly he's not available. So we'll see what happens.
Have you got one of your favorite talented singers, Samantha Jade, coming on at all?
Samantha Jade was very talented, and I would love to have her on the show. She really resonates with the younger audience, and where I don't know if you know, Aaron, but she won Australian Idol. No, came second in Australian Idol from memory. I watched every episode, as you can appreciate, and I wish her well. She's a very talented person. You should have her on the. You should have her on the show.
Absolutely. Is Australian Idol, X Factor, whatever.
Yeah,
um,
whatever.
we don't want to spoil, like, I guess, some of the items that people are bringing in, but I'm just wondering if you were surprised by any, because you asked to bring in, prized possessions. I mean, did some people bring in some stuff that you thought, wow, is that actually your prized possession?
Well, I was a bit suspicious in the first episode of Stephen Curry. I think he chose two items that were enormously difficult to A, transport, and B sort of believe were actually things that he would rescue, or indeed could rescue. They were so large and cumbersome. But we take it's good faith, basically. If Stephen says that's important to him, who am I to question that? Who am I to judge or even question, his honesty? So, yes, he brought in two items. He brought in two items that required a truck for one of them to transport from his property up in I think he lives in the Macedon Ranges or something. So that was difficult. I was hoping for something that he could just bring in his hand, because that would, runs into money hiring trucks and things. No, but from the list of items that our potential guests have offered us, I've got no reason to doubt. And they're a lot more manageable. Everybody except for Stephen was, very cooperative and helpful.
Well, he did help with the budget a little. He brought in one item, and then the second item could be used for destructing the other item. So I won't say what it was, but he did help you out that way.
He did. That's true. Yes, he gave with one hand and took with the other. That's true. And Aaron, it's destroying. You don't say destructing. It's not destruct. You don't destructing something. You destroy something.
Hey, I'm a teacher. I can make up things as I go along.
Well, I suppose there's Shakespeare made up words. That's fine.
I love your story. I guess some people, have thought about, like comedians that they didn't finish school. They mucked around, spent many years lining up at Centrelink and then tried comedy. But you were the exact opposite of all of that. I mean, a practicing solicitor for 10 years in what would arguably be the boringer section of law insurance. I love that story. Then a transition to comedy. Can you share some of that story as to how that happened?
Yeah, it looks like I made a jump from one profession to another, but I didn't really. When I finished university, when I finished my law degree and got a job, I still continued doing cabaret and review, which I'd done at university. So I had a bunch of friends, including Francis Greenslade, with whom I've worked for many years on many occasions, and my co-writer Gary McCaffrey. I met him at university as well. In fact, we went to the same school, high school together. So that kind of just continued and ran concurrently with my so-called professional career as a solicitor / barrister in South Australia. So when I decided to give up one for the other, it didn't seem like a huge leap. It just felt like I was using my time more effectively. And I took a year off. I took a sabbatical, and I came to Melbourne from Adelaide, and just tried it out for a year to see whether I could earn a living. And 1 year turned into 2 years, and then I was offered a third year, and I thought, oh well, this seems to be okay. I guess I can move to Melbourne permanently, which is what I did back in what was it now, 1996. I think I moved here permanently. So it's getting on now. In fact, my career, such that it is in comedy, has now well and truly lasted longer than my career as a solicitor. So 10 years as a solicitor. What is it now? Would it be right? 25 years, almost 30 years on the telly.
Yeah, we're all better for it. You became well known for characters like Milo Kerrigan and the male model Fabio. Shows like Fast Forward, Full Frontal, The Comedy Company, they were staples of the 80s and early 90s. Why do you think sketch comedy has fallen by the wayside on free-to-air television in Australia?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've wondered about that. I've sort of mourned its passing a bit, because it is a good opportunity for people to learn their craft. Like, for example, when I was on Full Frontal, I could mess up 2 or 3 sketches, do bad ones, and then it didn't matter, because later on in the show there might be a good one. And so your career didn't depend, on you hitting the marks each time. And I got to learn how to make television comedy, I suppose, over a 2 or 3 year period. But I think the reason it's not an attractive proposition for broadcasters now is because probably the better way to see sketch comedy is online. If you look at Auntie Donna's successful career, they don't need the traditional broadcaster to order a program where you put the sketches in a certain order and say, well, I've curated this program. It's half an hour long or an hour long, whatever it is, and this is it. So what happens is, as you know, people go online and they watch whatever they want. And sketch works well because it's maybe 2 minutes or a minute and a half or 10 seconds or whatever it is. It's the sort of same structure you would have in a television sketch comedy show, but really the YouTube user or the social media user puts that material in the order they want to see it, and they watch it when they want, and they make it themselves. I've seen very funny stuff that I wouldn't be ashamed of it all to put my name to that's made by somebody else online, and it's very funny. And yeah, so you just don't need it anymore, I think. So what happens is you get television shows now. Well, I've just done a kind of guest shot in a show called Time Bandits, which was made in New Zealand.
Mm.
It's on Apple, but it kind of uses sketch comedy to serve a narrative. So you have sketch comedy level performances a lot of the way through by people like me, and that works really well in the service of telling a half hour or 45-minute story. So I think that's probably where it'll end up. That kind of performance will just end up in sitcoms. I mean, even go back to 30 Rock, which is almost 15 years old now. 30 Rock is basically a whole bunch of sketch comedians doing
Mm.
sketch comedy characters, but in the service of a half-hour narrative.
Yeah, that's a great comedy. Have you ever thought why we've lost like some of the characters in comedy, like like Norman Gunston, Damien Everidge, Effie? These kind of people acts were part of the landscape. Have we just moved on from this kind of comedy?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. Let me think about that for a moment, Aaron, because I'm sure there's exceptions that prove the rule, or maybe even refute the proposition you put to me. I'm just trying to think. I suppose the last really, really big and influential sketch comedian was Chris Lilly. Uh,
Yeah.
that's not that long ago. Um, in fact, you could argue it's 5 years ago, I suppose. And those characters that he created were very, very popular for a time. And uh, I think the appetite is there. Maybe it's just moved to online, in which case I probably haven't seen a lot of it. But what I have seen, it's not necessarily character based. It's the trouble with shooting stuff in the real world is that your characters are kind of have to be a bit more real, whereas in the studio, um, as in the old '90s sketch comedy thing, you could have a pretty not terribly convincing set, but the character could be very outlandish and very big and very theatrical, and the audience would accept it. But if you do that outside in the real world, it just seems lame for some reason. So maybe that's the explanation. Again, look at Auntie Donna. Those
Mm.
characters, those sketch comedy performances are extraordinarily big when they're needed, and they can also be, because they're on television, because they're being captured with a camera. They can also be very, very, very subtle. So I think it's still there. It's just that maybe performers don't commit to just the one character. I think the protean quality, the chameleon appeal of playing many, many, many characters or variations on many characters, that's probably the attractive thing.
Yeah. Look, this is a real question. I'm not quite sure how to put it, and people like sort of do ask. So if it's offensive, I'm going to edit this out. Um,
Sure.
do,
Okay.
do, do you consider Shaun Micallef a character like Norman Gunston? I mean, the reason I ask that is you have a certain delivery and comedy style that is very particular, and that is flowed on from most of your shows. Even in your hosting roles, you kind of keep that character. Or am I wrong? Is that just Shaun Micallef?
Oh no, I think that would be too boring. Like for example, you and I are having a conversation now, which is hopefully quite real. But if I did this on television, I couldn't, in all honesty, accept the check for payment. I always feel like there has to be some performative element in what I'm doing.
Mm.
So I'll amp up the things that I guess that I am. Like I have a certain sense of humor, so I'll amp that up and I'll edit it and I'll make sure that it's value for money. Um, but over the years, I guess that's right. I guess when I did my first TV show on the ABC back in 1998, playing character called Shaun Micallef, that wasn't me at all. It was a, it was very much a character that I used to play on Full Frontal called David McGann. I just simply changed the name just gave it my name. Um, but over the years, by the time I got to hosting Talk About Your Generation, I think that was pretty much me, but in performance mode. For example, so it was all quite honest. It was because I'm ad-libbing, because it's spontaneous, because as is the case with this Eve of Destruction program as well, I don't have any notes during the interview. I'm just genuinely responding in a comic way often, sometimes not, sometimes it's a bit more serious. but I think over the years I've gradually planed away the sort of artificial nature of the character, or the contrivances, or the things that other writers might bring to the character, and it's kind of just me now. It's just amped up a little bit when it needs to. But if I'm in front of an audience and they haven't laughed for about 30 or 40 seconds, I feel like I'm letting them down. So I'll try and make sure that those plates are spinning and that it's an entertaining prospect. So I'll just throw in something. Or if the guest is doing well, I'll just sit back and watch and enjoy what they're offering. And so I often became the case on Mad as Hell, which I did on the ABC for many years, is that by the end of this 10 years we did, I was just pretty much sitting at the desk enjoying the characters that were sitting opposite me, enjoying the performances. I could just be seen smiling and laughing through it. It's very unprofessional, but it's kind of nice. It's kind of real. So I thought, I guess I just, at the end of Mad as Hell, I said, oh, that's the bit I find interesting, just sitting there and enjoying myself. I'll see whether I can make a show out of that. So basically, that's what I've attempted to do.
As we round up this interview, quoting Eminem, will the real Shaun Micallef please stand up? Who is Shaun Micallef at home? What do you like to do in your spare time? What are your passions apart from obviously reading?
Well, yeah, that gets us back to, I guess, what we were talking about originally. How did I make the jump from law to comedy? Because my vocation, I managed to turn my avocation into my vocation. I managed to turn what I used to do as a hobby, which was comedy, into my actual job. I don't actually have any hobbies, or I have nothing to do in my spare time. So when I'm not writing or performing, I tend just to try and be in the moment at home. I have three sons. They're kind of they actually are in their 20s now, so they're not around as much, nor do they need a doting father. But really, for those 20 years in my spare time, it was doing the stuff that actually matters, which is being present in the moment moments that I could with my children and my partner. So pretty boring answer, but yeah, I try and be in the real world.
Yeah, well, family means everything, of course. And finally, what's on the bucket list in terms of television projects for the future? What would you like to do still?
Well, that's a good question, because I have decided to circle back and see, and because I made a real hash of a of a chat show that I had on Channel 9 many years ago, like 20 years ago. I did a chat show on Channel 9 called Micallef Tonight, and it lasted 13 episodes, and I was terrible at it because I couldn't really sit and listen to the guests. I kept thinking, oh, now what's that joke we've got coming up in 10 minutes? I realized I wasn't listening to what they were saying.
Mm.
So basically, the later stages of my career have been me trying to get right things that I loused up earlier on in my career. So had a couple of attempts at doing a sitcom. I've had a couple of attempts at doing a news satire. The game show I got right first off, so that's okay. I don't have to go back to that. Although I tried Brain Eisteddfod, and it didn't work so well. So the Eve of Destruction is an attempt to get right what I got wrong 20 years ago. So I think that's probably what I'll do. It's a bit there's a bit of Eastern philosophy in that idea of just keep doing it till you get it right, and then you can put it aside and move on. So I guess I'll take advantage of the opportunities that come my way. If someone wants me to play a murderous villain in a drama, I think, well, I haven't done that before. That sounds interesting. I'll do that. So I'm attracted to that sort of work I've never done before, and kind of helping other people tell their stories rather than me just always telling mine.
Yeah. Well, you have done some, I suppose, I was drama comedy, Mr. and Mrs. Murder. I mean, that was
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
yeah, it was a great show.
I have done more realistic acting, I think, but I've got a very narrow range. I'm always playing a slightly obsessive, nerdy idiot. But because I look like the way I do, and because my voice is the way it is, I'm always going to be sounding like I'm a lawyer. There's always a certain amount of authority that I have in the characters that I'll play in a drama or in a comic drama. I'll always play somebody with authority who is probably not really up to the task. That's
Mm.
probably my range. I'm no the fellow I work with for many years in Full Frontal, Eric Banner,
Yeah.
wonderful actor. He's got much more range than I could ever hope of having. But if he rings me up, asks me to play his lawyer in his next film, I'll put my hand up.
Not quite sure who Eric Banner is. Sorry, who's that guy?
No? Oh, okay. I don't know. You should talk to him on your podcast. Yeah.
Can you sort that out? That'd be
Yeah,
great.
I will.
All right. Well, you've entertained us for decades. You've woven your comedy into all generations, and are just a legend of the Aussie media landscape. And loving the new show, Eve of Destruction. And I wish you the very best for the show.
Thank you, Aaron. That's very kind of you. And enjoy San Francisco.
Thank you. All right. I super appreciate your time, Shaun Micallef. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was Aussie insurance solicitor Shaun Micallef. You can catch him on Eve of Destruction Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on ABC and ABC iView from the 14th of August. That's it for another TV Central one-on-one podcast. For all the latest television news, streaming info, ratings, cinema movie reviews, TV guides, and podcasts, head to tvcentral.com.au. But for now, I'm Aron Ryan. Thanks to Shaun Micallef. Bye for now.